Are Christians allowed to be sad? Let's talk about it on this episode of You Can't Say That in Church. Welcome to You Can't Say That in Church, a video podcast where we talk about topics that you would typically avoid. I'm your host, Chandrise, and each episode we focus on a topic that is often avoided in the church. Today's episode, we will focus on the word sorrow, and we're going to look at it through the lens of the book of Job. A fun book, I know. Now, the book of Job is extremely profound because it is this perfect illustration of how we can deal with the sorrows that are inevitably going to come along in life. Now, I know for me, I have friends who are on all types of walks with God. Some of them are extremely Christian, some kind of dip and dabble, and some don't believe in God at all. But across all of these friend groups, I've heard the question, if God truly exists, then why does he allow us to experience pain? And I believe that the book of Job is here expressly for that reason, to let us know that God does exist, and this is why he allows us to experience pain. Now, I wanted to call this episode You Missed the Point, because oftentimes people will read the book of Job and fully overlook the wisdom that is hidden within that text. Job is considered one of the wisdom texts, like Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, and people can look at Proverbs and they can look at Ecclesiastes and see a list of ways to live your daily life. They can apply those to their lives very simply. They can read a verse a day and they're good to go. But the book of Job requires you to read the entire text to get the full message, but it's worth reading. And so we're going to talk about it today. We're going to talk about how the book of Job helps us to deal with sorrow. Now, I pretty much never agree with Satan, and I would advise you to do the same. But at the beginning of the book of Job, you see that Satan and God get into an exchange. And Satan basically says, hey, Job only loves you because you do everything for him. And that's a shallow love. And that's what you have. Shallow lovers walking around on this earth. And God says, okay, let's test him. God basically agrees. That would be shallow love if the only reason he loved me was because I gave him everything. Go ahead and take everything away from him and let's see where he stands at that point. Now, I know that is definitely an overgeneralization of what it says, but I'm going to go ahead and read it to you as always. Job 1:9 says, "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well, then everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Now, I agree, and I think that God agrees in this passage that a shallow version of love is not love at all. And so God will consistently test us to produce perseverance in us so that we can become mature Christians. And so I think that's what he's doing to Job here. And I think that he's placing this illustration here for us to know what it's going to look like for us when we have to go through these things. Now, one of my favorite authors, C.S. Lewis, talks about this concept in letter 8 of the Screwtape Letters. He calls it the law of undulation. And undulation is basically a wave-like motion. And he's basically saying that we go through peaks and we go through troughs. And that's the only constant thing in life, is that we will go through peaks and we will go through troughs. And that God uses both of these things to bring us closer to him. And I fully agree with this concept. And I think that that is what God is trying to show us in the book of Job. Many of us can testify that it's in our lowest moments that we find out who our true friends are. And I believe that the same thing is true of God. It's in our lowest moments when he's not doing anything for us, when we've been stripped of all those things he's given us and all those things that make us happy, or even one thing that makes us happy. And we're just in this low moment. It's when we're able to really experience the truth of the relationship with God. We're able to see what he is apart from what he can do for us. It's when we're stripped of all of the happy feelings that prosperity gives us that we're able to feel the trueness of our relationship with God. We're able to feel things like him being with us when nobody else is with us. We're able to feel him supporting us and giving us a supernatural peace that we can't feel when we're going through happy times and we don't need peace. Now, what's also noteworthy about the book of Job is Job's response. At first, as Job is experiencing these heartaches, he takes them in stride. As God giveth, so he taketh away. But then at some point in time, he starts to break, and he really has a human and very relatable response. And he starts to question why God would do this to him. He says that he would rather be dead. He doesn't understand why God would be torturing him in this way. And he got some questions for God. When he sees God, he's going to confront him and ask him as many questions as he can ask him about why God would do this to him. And he got an attitude. I'm going to admit that. And then his friends come, and his friends are basically telling him that it's his fault. His friends are giving him these false doctrines about why all of the things that are happening to him are happening to him. And Job is basically just arguing with them. He's saying, no, that's not why. I want to ask God. I don't want you to tell me. I know that's not the answer. God has the answer. And so that's who I want to hear it from, not you. Thank you. And then at a certain point, God appears and he basically says, okay, Job, I'll deal with you first. You have a lot of questions, but you really need to just know your role and understand that I'm God. I literally created earth and you did not. You cannot. And so you need to just trust that I know what I'm doing. And Job apologizes. He says, you're right. Thank you for answering me. And then God turns to Job's friends and he says this to them. After the Lord had said these things to Job, he said to Eliphaz the Temanite, I am angry with you and your two friends because you have not spoken the truth about me as my servant Job has. And so although Job did get quite the tongue lashing from God when God was answering his question, God also says that, hey, at least Job was honest. And so this is a word for you. Be honest with yourself. Definitely listen to friends, listen to family when they want to console you, but also just you need to have an honesty with God about your true feelings. You need to lament truly in order to bear yourself to God and allow him to form a true relationship with him. It cannot be based on falsities. It can't be based on optimism. You need to be open with God and give him your truth. Now, I'm also not suggesting that we should wallow in despair needlessly. I am saying that we should read the book of Job and understand that sorrow is a true human response and that the process of undulation is only going to bring us closer to God. But we want to hear your opinions on this topic, so you can go ahead and drop them in the comments below. You can also subscribe if you like this content and you want to be a part of the conversation. We'll be back next week. Stay chewy.